We got the story from the AP following the Supreme Court's decision that Trump cannot enact emergency tariffs under this one particular law. Donald Trump has come out and said he's going to increase tariffs anyway, citing 3 other laws from the 70s. He's now warning countries to abide by tariff deals despite the Supreme Court decision. Any country that wants to play games with the Supreme Court decision, Trump posted, will be met with a much higher tariff and worse than that which they just recently agreed to. He said Saturday that he wants a global tariff of 15% up from 10%. He announced immediately after the ruling. The court's decision struck down tariffs Trump had imposed on nearly every country using an emergency powers law. But the Republican president won't let go of his favorite, albeit now more limited, tool for rewriting the rules of global commerce and applying international pressure. So I am of the opinion that the tariffs are quite possibly the best thing for the United States. I am a huge, huge fan. And I believe that anybody who is truly interested in the betterment of the United States would support this. And anybody who either wants to extract value from the system to its decay would oppose it. The people that I view that are there's 2 groups of people that I believe are in opposition to the tariffs. Those that want to extract the value from this country to its demise, and those who don't understand what is going on in this country.
I suppose I'd be in the latter camp then.
Because you don't understand what's going on in the country?
If I have to pick one of those two, I think comparative advantage is a thing. I think trade is good. The best argument that I've heard in terms of the Trump tariffs is that there are situations where we need to use leverage to compel other countries to quit doing bad things. And it would be better to use tariffs than to do military interventions.
Completely disagree with tariffs as a means of military.
Oh, no, like as a way of avoiding military stuff, right? This is the best argument I've heard, is that like China is doing, they've got a predatory IP system. Other countries have tariffs. We could use punitive tariffs to try to lower it. So if you're using tariffs as a temporary leverage to try to get a policy goal, that makes sense to me. The idea that we have a kind of zero-sum fixed amount of wealth, and that if we are buying things from other countries, they're extracting wealth, I don't think that that's sound.
Is your argument graph go up?
My argument graph? What do you mean?
Is your argument, graph go up?
Yeah.
So the typical libertarian argument is described by a lot of people as graph go up, and liberals have adopted this recently as well. It means that on the macro, we can see a general economic improvement in the short term, so it's worth doing.
I would say my argument is that comparative advantage is real, and that.
So I have a company that manufactures products. How do I compete with Chinese slaves?
If we've actually got a supply line that's got slavery in it, I'd be fine with abolishing that.
It's all of it, 100%.
All things that we get from Chinese slave labor?
Like, is 25 cents an hour not slave labor because they choose to work for that much?
No. There's a difference between.
How do my employees, my manufacturing employees, compete with a guy who makes 25 cents an hour?
They got to find a way to compete.
So when my industry dies because we are spending 10 times as much to ship lumber to China to manufacture it with peasant labor, and send it back to the United States, how is that good for us, our country, and our children?
So 2 things. First, I want to go ahead and hit the slave labor thing, right? If there's actual involuntary servitude going on, that's immoral.
I'm being hyperbolic. I'm talking about people who would otherwise work for better wages with health care, but instead are getting paid 50 cents an hour to do this work.
If we're removing actual slavery from the equation, right?
Peasant labor.
Yeah, peasant labor, right? The one thing they can compete on, lower wages. We end up being able to import things cheaper. It makes everybody better off in the long run.
That's completely incorrect. You're flat out wrong.
When you look at like American manufacturing, we've got intermediate parts that come in from other countries. So if you want to have cars in America, you need to be able to get parts from other countries.
Why?
Because if you raise the prices on that, you raise the price on the consumer, and everything costs more.
And if everything costs, so are you familiar with the old apocryphal legend of Henry Ford and the Ford factory?
Yes, I'm familiar with the apocryphal. Yeah, where he had to pay people enough.
He argued that if I pay a higher rate, then the employees actually buy the cars from me on a loan, and then they're paying me back the money I'm paying them, and then earning a percentage off the excess cars we produce.
I hadn't heard the loan bit, but I do think it's apocryphal.
Well, it's their financing. They can't afford to buy the car outright, but they're paid enough to where they can say, okay, I can save up for this, and then a portion of they're buying the product back from the guy where they're making it at a premium.
But like you're familiar with comparative advantage, right? Like, you know the basic premise behind that? May I enlighten people that might be unfamiliar with it? So like, let's say I'm Scotland and you're France. I, as Scotland, am very good at making sheep. I'm not very good at making wine. Scottish wine would presumably be very sweet. You'd probably fry it. It wouldn't be particularly good. Meanwhile,
Well, that could be great.
it could be. You know what? Actually, I got to go. Like, we're going to call it Scottish prison wine. I would try it, Scottish prison, but they're probably not going to produce very much of it because it's not very good for making grapes, right? But they're very good at making sheep. Meanwhile, France, really good at making grapes, large amount of grapes, very bad at making sheep comparatively, right? They probably have some sheep. If the Scots go, well, we want to protect our nascent wine industry, so we're going to put tariffs on the French wine industry, then France is going to respond by putting tariffs on wool coming in from Scotland.
Indeed.
The result is you're going to get more wine in Scotland, but you're going to get less wine overall in the equation. You're going to get more sheep in France, but you're going to have less sheep overall. Everybody gets less wine and less sheep.
Now, you said that the Scottish wine was just no good, right?
It's we could just focus on like quantity. They're not going to be able to produce as much of it. So you're going to use both countries in a less productive manner.
Is it better for the people of Scotland and the generational wine farmers to have their industry destroyed because you, as a consumer, want to save $3 on your wine? Or is it fair to say that the bustling wine industry in Scotland, which is storied and has legacy, deserves a chance to survive for its community, for its culture?
They should absolutely be able
Well, how
to
do they
compete for that. Well, like you might want to get Scottish wine, but if it's something that they can't produce that people want,
France has got Chinese peasants working 25 cents an hour producing garbage wine that Scotland can't compete against. Mm-hmm. The wine is actually no good.
And now what's going to happen is the Scots are going to put more of that effort into sheep, and they're going to produce more sheep. They're going to
This is just not correct.
shift their
based on what we've
economics
actually
towards something
seen in the
that's
United
more
States.
productive.
So I'll give you an example that I often give to most people, which is it's personal. Skateboarding is dead. It's an Olympic sport, but it's completely dead. We sold something like 500 boards in a month. Shocking. Industry experts asking me, Tim, how did you sell 500 skateboards? And I said, I went on my show and said, go to boonieshq.com and buy the skateboards. The pros are now working for Uber Eats. They are doing delivery driving for Amazon. They no longer have the time or ability, for the most part, to be professionals in their own sport. There's videos popping up of some of the best professional skateboarders who, Olympic contenders, who now work for Home Depot, making minimum wage. You know why? Because the factories that produce skateboards, instead of employing Americans and marketing a product to Americans, offshored all the manufacturing to China, where we cut down wood in Canada, import it to the United States, send it to China. Chinese peasants make the boards for pennies on the dollar, send back cheap Chinese crap, and now there's no factories, no employees, and no pro skateboarders. If you go to Japan and China, they have skateboarding up the wazoo. Every new pro is some 15-year-old Japanese kid, and the country that invented the Olympic global phenomenon has lost control of it because we gave it away, because we told people in this country, which would you rather buy, the $50 American-made skateboard or the $30 Chinese-made skateboard? And to be honest, when the people walked into the shop to buy a board, they didn't know the difference. And they said, $30 sounds good to me if it works. Well, guess what happened? Every American worker who grew up, whose dad owned a wood shop, lost their job, and now they don't skate anymore. Their kids, the Gen Z, and this is across the board. Skateboarding's personal for me. I know people probably don't care about it, but it's the perfect example of how we are willing to spend 10 times as much on the energy to send our raw materials to China so peasants can do it and Americans lose their jobs. And then when no American has the job, what company is going to promote and market the new product to kids? It doesn't exist anymore. It's in China. So when you go to China, what do you find? Thousands of kids at their skate parks. When you go to Japan, what do you find? They're opening new skate parks like crazy. They're launching TV shows about skateboarding. We invented it in California and we gave it away, and it's not coming back.
I lament that there's been a dearth of professional skating, and that it's something that's near and dear to you.
So what is
stopping the professional skateboarders from just buying the skateboards that they have in China and Japan?
There's no one skateboarding anymore.
Because the skateboards have declined in quality?
The companies used to go to parks and they'd say, look at this skateboard we made down the street. Why don't you try it there, Sonny? And the kid would then try it. And the factory had 5 to 10 employees. And those employees would come home and give the extra boards to their kids. And the company would say, we're going to put together a skate team to market this. That company's in China now. So that guy going to the park, he's Chinese. There's very few American manufacturers. It takes us weeks to produce because we're desperately trying to rebuild an industry while we're competing with China. And they tell me on the phone, Tim, if you get the Chinese to do it, we'll get your boards $5 cheaper. And I say, I don't want a $5 cheaper board. I want skateboarding back. I want the
Can
sport.
you not just compete on quality? I mean, wouldn't people pay a better price for a quality
Quality is
board?
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think that's
Chinese
part
boards
of it.
are good.
You might want a cheap board or a high quality board. Maybe we compete on quality.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.